Welcome once again to another edition of The Catholic View for Women here on EWTN, bringing you news and views from a truly Catholic perspective. I'm Teresa Tomeo, and in addition to co-hosting this show, I also host a daily radio show right here on EWTN that's called The Catholic Connection. I'm here on set, as I always am on this program, with my wonderful co-host, Janet Morana from Priests for Life in Silent No More, and Astrid Bennett Gutierrez, who is president of course, Hispanics for Life. Now, this is a really neat topic we're going to talk about today, and very, very important. We're calling this Catholic View from our elderly sisters and brothers, too, because the elderly, I think, it's a segment of our society that often are forgotten about.
Absolutely. And also, too, you have to, they shouldn't be forgotten because of the wisdom they can give us. You know, my fondest memories are talking to my father and my grandfather and asking them what was it like growing up, and the stories, and my grandmothers. You know, I can think of particularly, you know, my grandfather. I mean, he had no more than a 6th grade education, and yet he advanced himself to be chairman of the board of one of the largest woolen companies in the Northeast. And he was responsible for designing most of the plaids you saw in Catholic school uniforms when they were made of wool.
So it's your fault we had to wear those uniforms?
Yes, those itchy uniforms. It was my grandfather. But, you know, there's such wisdom in talking to them. You know, my grandfather never had computers or calculators. He did math in his head. Yeah. It's no more of a 6th grade, like, to figure out the weaves and the patterns, you know. Yeah. There's so much wisdom from them.
In every culture, I mean, there's an appreciation for the elderly, but I think in America, we just lose that because we are in such a consumer society and utilitarian society where if you're not useful or deemed useful, it's that you don't matter anymore. But you're right. I mean, they are such a goldmine of wisdom, of faith. I mean, my grandmother was a person who went to Mass every day, taught her children to pray. And I mean, I think any one of my peers, Hispanic peers, could talk about their grandmother as somebody who was very saintly, very generous, very pious. So we have that legacy. They have so much to give to us.
And I think, too, in the Italian-American culture, growing up in large Italian-American families, same for my husband, who's also Italian-American, where the grandparents and then the parents were really the focus of everything, if you think about it. And sitting at that dinner table, especially on Sunday afternoons, and we would have the macaroni, and you'd have your meatballs and your sausage, and the food was a big part of it, too. But I can remember when we used to go back to New Jersey to visit my mom's family, and the big thing would be the dinner around Grandma and Grandpa's table in their apartment in Jersey City, and everybody would be there, all the extended cousins, because my mother came from a very large family of 10 children. So that was an absolute highlight for us growing up, to sit there and to listen to the stories. That's how I learned where they were from, what parts of Italy, and that really is where I started to learn about my background, both my mother's side and my father's side, but just really strong memories growing up from listening to the elderly in our family.
Well, and back then, too, we had Sunday afternoon was the big meal.
The big meal.
Dinner.
Who
you went to
does that
church
anymore,
in the morning,
you know?
and then in the afternoon you had this big meal. The family all came together. That doesn't happen nowadays. And also, too, back then, I know, especially in the New York area where I grew up in Brooklyn, the family all lived together in the same neighborhood. So that everyone took care of the more elderly grandparents. You all lived together. But unfortunately, in today's society, with people moving and getting jobs in all across country, the family unit is not all together. And unfortunately, a lot of our elderly brothers and sisters end up having to be in assisted living or nursing homes, not because the family necessarily wants to do that, but sometimes their care requires it, and sometimes the family has jobs in other parts of the country, and they can't be there to take care of mom and dad. So, you know, we can't forget our elderly brothers and sisters who are in assisted living and in nursing homes.
And it's funny because, Janet, you know my mom, who's 88 years old, and she's Rosie Posey, and you're one of her adopted daughters now. And of course, you know all my aunts and my mom's sisters, who are just a hoot and a half. My mom's 88 years old, and she is as feisty as she is, and her best friend, Jean, is going to be 90. And the two of them, I think, have a busier social life than I do. I mean, they're out in Bible study and this prayer group and this luncheon or whatnot. But I love hearing the stories that she comes back and shares now, even in her late 80s, about life and wisdom and something that she learned or picked up. Because from their perspective, they're coming at it from this life well lived, raising children and grandchildren, and now great-grandchildren in my mother's case, and we have something to learn from them. And I think we put that aside too often in this fast-paced microwave society. Oh, I just got to do this and that in my career, and we don't stop to sit and have a conversation with these people who are such, you know, such wise people.
And we're going to be there too someday, God willing, you know, God willing. And the thing is, being an elderly person means that you have been, you know, hopefully transformed by Christ, and you should be at the pinnacle years. I mean, when you're most holy is when you have that wisdom, and hopefully you are growing in, in grace. And some of the most powerful moments in my reversion have been with elderly people. When religious sister in particular that I met, Sister Tekla, when I first met her, I just saw so much joy in her. And she had been in religious life so many years, but I saw her just really living so joyfully for others, and I said, you know, I want to be like that one day. I hope to be like that one day.
It's interesting because for this story, we actually had some emails from our viewers about elderly men and women, and I thought immediately of my friend Bob Rowe, who's a Catholic singer and songwriter. He's well known to EWTN viewers. He's been on Backstage before. He's also a regular guest, as I said, on Catholic Connection. But his ministry is so unique. Now, he's a performer and he's a writer and he does a lot of beautiful Catholic music as well, but he really, his heart is for the elderly.
That's right.
And so he actually sent us this really, really cool clip. It's an older clip, actually, that was played, I think, many years ago on EWTN, but it is so moving, where he's in a nursing home singing to the elderly. And in this video, you'll see that we'll play in about a minute or so, where they're actually having some sort of a celebration. The ladies are all dressed up, and the gentlemen have suits on, and they have corsages on, and it's just so sweet. But it just reminded me of how joyful they are and how much we can gain from them, and the wisdom and the beauty that you see. Bob says it has affected his ministry and his career so much that he's been very successful, but he still ministers to that group because he just loves them so much.
Well, I think he said that every time he travels, he goes and visits a nursing home.
Right, even if he has a concert not even related
That's right.
to the elderly. He wants to be around
He wants
them.
to be around and give that gift to them of his entertainment.
Well, we've got that clip. It's a few minutes long. We're going to toss it to the tape right now, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. But I also think, listen to what Bob is saying here about what treasures that these men and women are. Because in this episode, again, of The Catholic View for Women in Season 2, we're talking about the Catholic view from our elderly sisters and brothers, too. Take a look.
He's been called the Smile Maker, a talented friend to all. He's Bob Rowe of Portage, Michigan. He's a songwriter-performer whose special love for the elderly of the world has blossomed like a spring flower, providing renewed life and comfort to the residents of our state's nursing homes. Bob's love of performing for the elderly has been the seed for the formation of one of the most unique caring organizations in the country. After years of performing before the elderly at total care facilities across the state, Bob's genuine love for the residents has laid the foundation for Renaissance Enterprises, a nonprofit organization to serve the elderly. When we heard of Bob's work, we made arrangements to meet with him at one of his performances at Mercy Manor in Grayling, where we asked him why he believed he was drawn to perform with this special population.
The answer to me is a very simple answer. I guess I would sum it up to one word: chemistry, because all of life and all of our relationships, the ones that work the most have the best chemistry. And right away people think, well, this means, some kind of a physical feeling. Well, it doesn't necessarily. It means that you connect with this particular segment or this particular individual just because you do, and there really maybe isn't any explanation for it. But ever since I knelt down in front of the first elderly lady and sang her "You Are My Sunshine" and saw the warmth and the expression on her face and how she lit up, I knew right away this was a very special thing to be able to do. We've seen some miraculous things happen, with many folks. In fact, I remember when I first came to this nursing home here, there was a lady who was kind of slouched down in her wheelchair, and she looked down at the floor. And I have a habit of going around the circle and singing one-on-one to each one of the residents. And I realized that I just thought there was some more life inside of that person than I was seeing. And so finally, about the fourth time I went around the circle, she raised her head up ever so slowly and gave me the biggest wink you ever saw. And from then on, we were fast buddies, and she was my friend, and other folks who knew her and knew that she hadn't responded to anything in a long time thought that was a very significant thing. And we see that all the time, not just with myself, but our other artists. We see people that can't even remember the names of their own relatives and their friends or their family, but they remember the lines to songs. and the lyrics, and they remember our visits. So it's a pretty neat thing.
I can tell it's a two-way street here with you entertaining, and you get a lot back from them
Oh, yeah.
as far as seniors, people who have contributed very much to society in their younger years, and then to be able to come here and entertain and give a little bit back to what they give to the society is something special.
We see that there's still so much emphasis on youth, and you know, there's a world of experience sitting in a care facility. You know, these folks, you know, have lived through so much, through 2 world wars, and they lived through interpersonal situations, and they lived through a health crisis and survived. And as one elderly lady said to me one time, you don't live to be 98 years old and not learn something, young man. You know, and that's really true. You really realize when you talk to some of these people that, gosh, this is a gold mine, and we really need to mine this field and get acquainted with these folks because they have so much to offer us. They really do.
That day at Mercy Manor was a very special day for the senior residents. Families were expected to take part in a banquet. Portraits were being taken while volunteers and staff were preparing a feast fit for royalty. Rob was taking advantage of the time with the seniors by chatting and singing a few songs with them. He told us that Mercy Manor was a fine senior care facility, going extra lengths to provide a caring touch so many residents deserve. But there are so many cases in other parts of the world where seniors face lives of neglect, which was the true motivation for him to initiate Renaissance Enterprises.
For a number of years, I've traveled around the world, you know, as a entertainer and done evening shows and auditoriums and such, but I always made it my habit to go into the local nursing home of whatever city that I've been in. And right away I could see that there was a lot of cultural depredation that exists in that type of an environment. Many of the residents don't have family members and don't have the type of love and nurturing that we all need to feel good about ourselves and our position in this world.
Make seniors rightfully feel that they are somebody special. As a matter of fact, Bob incorporated that belief into his theme song he's composed, which he sings regularly to seniors, called You're Someone Special.
You're someone special, and I wanted you to know that I'll be thinking of you wherever you go. And if you need somebody when all your dreams fall through, I want you to remember that I love you. And I'll give you the best of me. And I'll give you my love for free. And no holds barred and nothing held back. God made you. There's nothing you lack. You're someone special, and I wanted you to know that I'll be thinking of you wherever you go. And if you need somebody when all your dreams fall through, I want you to remember that I love you. And I've seen that I've seen you. And nothing turns out like we wished it would. But we've got to stay together, and we've got to defend this human family again. That's why you're someone special, and I wanted you to know that I'll be thinking of you wherever I go. And if you need somebody when all your dreams fall through, I want you to remember that I love you.
And as Mother Teresa says, if we feed people's bodies and neglect their spirits and their minds, you know, what good is it to take care of their bodies, because they'll surely wither anyway. So that's what we're all about. We feed people's spirits.
If you were in the situation that you could no longer entertain or provide for this type of organization, what would you hope that you had left to the seniors?
Well, I hope I've left hundreds of smiles all over the world. And I also would hope that above and beyond that, that I've enabled others to experience the real joy of giving and the real joy and pleasure of sharing whatever gift it is they have with other people. And to realize all of us have the same common need to be loved and accepted, and it comes with the territory of being a human being. So I would wish that my legacy would be that other folks would learn the joy of giving and sharing.
Now, I don't know about you, but when Janet and Astrid and I were watching that clip, we were very, very moved. And even though it's a few years old, it was so beautifully done. And I think it really encapsulates Bob's ministry. And you heard the town of Grayling, that's in northern Michigan. Bob is actually based in western Michigan. That's how we first met, through living in the same state. Beautiful ministry. We'll have information on his website, on our website. So please go to CatholicViewForWomen.com for more information. But when we come back after the break, we'll talk more about this gold mine of wisdom, the Catholic view from our elderly sisters and brothers too. Stay tuned for more Catholic View for Women on EWTN. We'll be right back. Welcome back. In this episode, of course, we're talking about the Catholic view from our elderly sisters and brothers, too. So the moral of this story, call your mother, call your father, call your grandmother and your grandfather. Pick up the phone and call.
Pick up the phone.
Right.
You know, and it really reminded me of when my dad was in a nursing home for a number of years. You know, he had been very disabled from multiple strokes and surgeries, and we kept him home as long as we could. But at a certain point, I remember the Monsignor of the Catholic Charities said to my mom, you know, her name's Janet too, she says, when his quality of life is better in the nursing home than at home, that's what you have to do. And that's what we got to that point.
Sometimes for people,
and it was it upset us very much. But what we did was we went often to visit, and we had a version of Rowe who would come once a month to the nursing home and entertain. And I really think that hopefully other people watching our program will be so inspired by what they just saw. If you know someone who has a talent, you know, a singer, someone who dances, whatever that talent is, think about donating just once a month, going to that nursing home and giving a performance and doing something. I can remember my dad, just like you saw those faces, they look forward to it. It was like, we have to, you know, get down to the rec room and get ready because there's an event this Sunday. It really does change their lives. You saw how Rob was saying those smiles and the way he sang to them and the way he thought. And I knew from personal experience with my dad, it meant a lot. I mean, we used to go regularly, and we would have like family little gatherings and things there, and then we would take him home as often as we could on a special holiday. But, you know, you have to hire a transport and all that, and I'm sure some of the viewers can relate to that. But we can't forget going to visit assisted living and nursing homes because, you know, with this day and age when family is spread so far across the country, very often you might have a parent in a nursing home in California and you live in the South or something. You can't get there as often. So the people in that community really need to be the ambassadors to go to that nursing home and bring the joy there.
And I also think, too, that even if you don't have a relative in a nursing home, as you said, if you have a talent or something that you can do maybe to bring communion to the elderly, and to sit and talk with them, because they're fascinating. They have such an interesting stories to tell. I mean, my mom, she is just, and you know my mom, as I said earlier, she's a hoot and a half. But the stories that she tells from her childhood, I never get tired of hearing them.
I don't either.
You know, it's just so wonderful.
And I had the incredible privilege to have my grandfather living at home with us until he passed away. He lived with us maybe 10 years. And one regret that I have is, even though he was with us, we kind of got used to the fact that he lived with us.
Right.
I really wish I would have spent more time with him. I really doesn't, my college years and all that, but I said, wow, he was just wonderful. He was so tender. My mother said he was much nicer to you than he was to us. But, you know, he's, you know, grandparents.
I always tease my mom, they're old people trying to get into heaven. That's what I tell her. So this isn't the same. I tell my nieces and grandnieces, this isn't the same woman who raised me. It's different.
Such a treasure, and we really should be grateful if we have them close to us. If not, you know, really reach out to them. They're such a treasure, and they're a blessing to us.
My grandmother, my father's mother, lived with us. What what they did toward the end of her life. Eventually, they had to put her in a nursing home also. But for a while there, after my grandfather died, we had her living with us for 6 months, and she moved to my aunt's house for 6 months. We kind of each took turns. And my grandmother, my father's mother, came over from Italy when she was much older. She was in her late 20s, so she spoke broken English, and her accent, she was so much fun because we tried to guess what she was saying, and we teased her and got to know her and love her a lot. But she talked about a lot of the experiences in the old country, which helped me build up even a bigger interest in my love for my Italian-American heritage. Now, my mother's mother, her mother came over when she was a little bit young, well, a lot younger, when she was only 3 or 4 years old. And so these two different perspectives from in different parts of Italy, it gives you a sense of your own cultural heritage as well, especially to talk to, in addition to trying to be there for other people, maybe in a nursing home, but to really meet with the elderly in your family is huge.
My grandfather was in the Mexican Revolution. He remembers the
Really?
Cristeros. I would be popping
Wow.
popcorn, and it reminded him of gunfire. He would tell me a story about the Mexican Revolution and the Cristero martyrs. It's incredible, the treasures we have, and we don't realize.
Cristo Rey. Wow,
Viva.
cool. I didn't know that. What a story. See what you find out?
Well, it's like my dad used to say, don't ask me what I had for breakfast, but if you got him talking about World War II,
Right.
he could tell you stories, And I think of my mother-in-law, and she was really directly responsible for my reversion, for me coming back to the faith. And that's the other thing that our elderly brothers and sisters in the Lord teach us is our faith. They are so devout. So many of them, like my mother-in-law, were daily communicant, going to Mass every day. And it was so funny. On Monday, she used to light do her candles that go around the church, all her saints. And then at our church, St. Charles, where Father Frank actually was our parish priest, the Monsignor changed from real candles to the lit ones, the electric. The electric. It got her so upset. But then she found out that on Sunday night, he used to shut the candles off, make it restart, so it would be clear for Monday morning. So she used to tell me, she put her donation, all the saints, she would light her candles on Monday, so she got the most out of it.
Absolutely. And we live in a time when faith was so simple, and faith was central, too,
It
as
was
opposed
all
to...
about, and you can learn a lot about not only your own life, but of course about God and life in general. It's such a beautiful pro-life statement. As both of you are involved in the pro-life movement, and much of your ministry has to do, well, we all are, but much of it has to do with the unborn and post-abortive women and men. But, we are pro-life from womb to tomb, and this is an important aspect of that.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so often, I think, the elderly are just forgotten too much. And like you said before, call your mother, call your father, call your grandfather. You have to say, how often? How come is it that we wait sometimes to Mother's Day or Father's Day, or now Hallmark card says in September, Grandparents' Day? And I'm a grandma now, I'm a nana. Why do we have to wait for those occasions? What about all the other days of the year? I don't think a day should go by when you don't think about them, and at least call them once a week.
I call my mom every day, at least once a day.
Oh, I know, especially when we're on the road. We don't get on the phone.
I should also mention that people who are elderly have so much to give still.
Exactly.
In their spiritual life and in service. The pro-life movement, we have people who are in their 80s, 90s, still doing work.
At the pregnancy centers.
Absolutely.
Well, this is a great conversation. We only have a few minutes left, so I want to get a few things in.
John Paul II wrote a beautiful letter to the elderly, our Saint John Paul II. And let me just read, as he starts off this letter to the elderly, he quotes from Psalm 90, verse 10.
This is so pretty.
And this goes like this: 70 is the sum of our years, or 80 if we are strong. And most of them are fruitless toil, for they pass quickly and we drift away. And then the Holy Father goes on to say, and this is the first paragraph of his letter, 70 years was an advanced age when that psalmist wrote these words, and few people lived beyond it. Nowadays, thanks to medical progress and improved social and economic conditions, life expectancy has increased significantly in many parts of the world. Still, it remains true that the years pass quickly, and the gift of life, for all the effort and pain it involves, is too beautiful and precious for us ever to grow tired of it. And of course, I always like to remember John Paul II's famous quote, life is always a good. I'm going to encourage everyone in our homework to read this whole letter in its entirety. It's
This
beautiful.
last line, though, it remains true that years pass quickly, and the gift of life, for all the effort and pain it involves, is too beautiful and precious for us to ever grow to grow tired of it. That's really powerful. We have about 2 minutes left, so let's go over the homework assignment, Janet, if we could. This just flew by.
Very important
I
homework.
love this first suggestion.
The first
that you have here.
suggestion is to interview your grandparents or a great aunt or uncle. Ask them what it was like growing up in their era and what they think of the world today, and spend some quality time with them. Number 2 homework assignment. If your elderly relatives are deceased, have a mass said for them. Also, at the anniversary of what would have been their birthday or the anniversary of their death, and of course, get a. They have mass cards you can get. Number 3, visit a nursing home to volunteer. Perhaps you're looking for volunteer work. Volunteering at a nursing home is quite rewarding. Number 4, consider bringing communion to the homebound and the elderly by becoming a Eucharistic minister at your parish. And of course, number 5, read St. Pope John Paul II's letter to the elderly, and we'll have that on our website at thecatholicviewforwomen.com. All that homework will be there for you, and the links to the documents. I highly encourage you to get that homework done.
You know, I just thought of this. You know, it'd be fun too if you have pictures of the elderly in your family. Send us a picture of your mother or your grandmother. I think that'd be really neat, and we'll post some pictures of our family. Rosie Posey is going to get upset with me because she doesn't want her picture on camera. She doesn't think she's pretty anymore. We're going to put it up there anyway. Yeah. Well, great discussion, and again, for more information on Bob Rowe's ministry, please go to our website, CatholicViewForWomen.com. You can also just do a Google search for him under Renaissance Music and Bob Rowe, and it's R-O-W-E. I love that video with the elderly folks. So great discussion, but again, remember, call your mother, your grandmother, your grandfather, because they have a great deal of wisdom, and seeing the view from their perspective is a huge thing for all of us. Thanks. We'll see you next time on The Catholic View for Women.